frankly, the biggest Obama successes this year have been very good messaging and negative ads against Mitt Romney that, frankly, have nothing to do with the stuff I have written about, and are. I think that they have some sort of sophisticated, like, qualitative research tools to test their ads and stuff, but basically they were just good at being ruthless in all the rich guy stuff. Where we should reprise this conversation in 2 weeks, the real test of, and not just because we'll see the result, but because we'll actually see whether their ability to identify and mobilize their coalition, historically underperforming parts of their coalition, that'll be the real measurement of their technical prowess. And the Latino population nationwide is one of those groups. Specifically, we've seen from all these experiments where there's a pretty good body of work on how to motivate people, and it's almost all the good stuff is informed by research from the behavioral sciences. A lot of which had its origins in psychology, was demonstrated in other aspects of human life, occasionally demonstrated in lab experiments in some form or another, but now is finally being translated into politics as it is practiced. And so there are now, and the left has been much better at collecting and synthesizing this research and distributing it out down to local candidates. And that there have been we know a whole lot of what are basically psychological tricks or nudges that increase somebody's likelihood of voting, none of which have to do with the individual candidates or the issues, but all with sort of changing the sort of social dynamics around voting. So I'll briefly tell a story of the most fun of them, which also happens to be the most successful tool we know for turning a non-voter into a voter. So in 2006, in this experiment in Michigan, these 2 guys from Yale have been talking about Green and Gerber, partnered with a local direct mail vendor. They randomly assign voters to get one of several different messages, and one of them says something like, "Dear Jim, your history as a voter is a publicly available document on file with the Travis County Board of Elections. Here's your history as a voter. You did vote in last year's Senate election. You did not vote in the school board election. You did vote in the presidential primary. You did not vote in the mayoral election. And here are your neighbors' vote histories, and had other people on your block and whether or not they had voted in those same elections." And then there came a threat. There's another election coming up, and afterwards we'll send everybody an updated set. And this increased turnout among the people who received it by 20%. And it also got the guy who sent it death threats. And both of these facts convince the people who are running the experiments that this idea, which psychologists call social pressure, applies in politics, which is people want to live up to the sort of what they see as the standards and norms of their community, letting people know that something that they thought was private, like everything having to do with voting, actually can be made public, that they can be sort of surveilled and judged based on whether or not they live up to that standard. And so there's been an effort underway in campaigns to figure out how you can harness this psychological tool without the death threats. And now there's a bit of language that the Obama campaign uses widely that'll say something like they'll send out letters, or they'll use this in scripts where they'll go to somebody who, as you know, and this is you see in a lot of underrepresented populations, people who voted in 2008 but haven't voted in any election since then. And it'll say something like, "Dear Jim, I can see you voted in the 2008 election, and I wanted to thank you for having been a voter. There's another election coming up, and I'm hoping that once again I can thank you for your good citizenship." And these are techniques that, what's really amazing about them is that they increase turnout not by the 20%, but by several points. And they're not talking about Barack Obama or Mitt Romney. They're not talking about the DREAM Act. They're not talking about what Republicans controlling the House and the presidency would mean. They're all about, in this case, through a little bit of a casual threat, an implied threat, changing the psychological social dynamic around voting and playing to somebody's desire to fit in and not stand out for having done something wrong and being judged by their peers. And so that there is a body of research that the left has done a better job of understanding and exploiting, that they are hoping, and we'll see by numbers in a couple of weeks whether they've been successful, but that they feel are really helpful at motivating people in a way that doesn't rely on them being conventionally enthused about the election as a choice.